Hello, in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to program a handler and how it can save you time during a scenario, leaving you free to focus on the learner instead of the computer. A handler allows a learner's actions or event to trigger a patient response or action, no matter where you are in a scenario. Handlers work the same in the original SimMan software as they do in SimMan3G, but programming is a little different. For this video, we will look at the SimMan3G software. Handlers are great for automating tasks in a simulation and can be saved and added to any scenario, saving you even more time. First thing you need to do is open up the handler editor. This can be done either by going to Start, All Programs, look for the Laerdal SimMan3G folder, click on that, and then click in Events Handler Editor, or by actually opening up the instructor application, which I have here, going to Tools, and from there going into Handler Editor. Now that I'm in the Handler Editor, I have my empty frame where I'll add my learner event and the patient response. Over on the left I have my patient response parameters or little buttons, and then below that I have my learner events. And then up here at the top we have the usual new handler, load handler, save handler, new frame, delete frame buttons that you would expect. So if I look back down at the patient response and learner event buttons, they're gray and I can't click on any of them. In this version of the software, we need to click on either the learner event or patient response section of the empty frame to activate those buttons. I need an idea to fill this frame. It could be for a specific scenario or something more general that can be used in multiple scenarios. I'm going to program a basic oxygen therapy handler. So if you watched the basic handlers video for the original SimMan software, this should look familiar. I need to start by filling in the learner events section. Back under the learner events section of the empty frame, I'm going to click which activates the learner event buttons over on the left. I know that I can click on different parts of this body to activate corresponding events. Oxygen should be under mouth and nose, and I can hover the mouse over this section to see what the section refers to. Once I click on it, I can look through a list and find oxygen therapy. Clicking on that opens another set of options, and I want to look for nasal cannula and occurs. This means that when the learner adds oxygen, it will trigger a patient response or action. Not occurs within means that I would set a time limit, and if the oxygen was not added, the patient's condition would deteriorate based on how I have programmed it. For this, we want to choose occurs and click OK. Now my event is filled in, and so I need a patient response. So I will click in the patient response section. This activates the patient response buttons over here on the left, and I'm looking for O2, which is under the monitor button, and here's the monitor button, so I'll click there. This brings up a group of options, but what I'm interested in is the SpO2, so I'll go ahead and change that to 97, which means that no matter what the O2 is in the scenario, when the learner applies O2 and I trigger the handler, the O2 will jump up to 97%. As long as I don't touch anything else in this menu, all the other settings will stay the same, so I'm just going to come down here and click OK. The next thing I want to do is adjust the respirations. So again, I'll have to click to add a patient response, and then over on the left, the respirations button. I'm going to change this to 14 and click OK. Finally, I want to automatically add a comment to the log about the O2 when they apply it. This will be very helpful during debriefing. So again, I'm going to click to add a patient response, and then back over here on the comment button, where I will type in my comment, and then I can grade it on a scale of 1 through 10. We're not going to do that. And I can also label it as a correct step or a wrong step. This is going to be a correct step. Now really, from this box, I don't even actually have to have a comment. I could just use this to label each thing as a correct or incorrect step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here, I'll erase my comment, make sure that this stays as a correct step, and I'll click OK. Looking back at my frame here, I have nasal oxygen, and I have the SpO2 being changed, the respiration rate being changed, and my comment, which really is just labeling it as a correct step. Now if I wanted to, I could add more frames by coming up and clicking on the Create Frames button, and then clicking anywhere down here in my empty palette. I can also delete unwanted frames. Just by clicking on the unwanted frame, you know that you've selected that one by this blue box. And then I'll click the X, or Delete Object button, and that deletes the object. This oxygen frame is all that I actually need, so I'm going to go ahead and save it by clicking on the disk. I'm going to call this O2 test. I could add a comment over here, or a description so that another person programming would know what this handler does, and then I'm going to go ahead and save it. So now that it's saved, I want to test it and make sure that it works. I'm going to go to the SimMan software, which I already have opened up down here because that's how I got into the handler editor. So I'm just going to bring up this instructor application. I have a patient set up here who actually has a low oxygen level and high respirations. So I'll go ahead and run the simulation. If I look over here, his oxygen is low at 85, his respirations are high at 22. So I'll come right down here to Add Handler. I'll pick my O2 test from the list of handlers and open it. You see right here at 53 seconds the handler that was started is O2 test. I can also see right here there's the handler. I could stop this handler by clicking the X. Now, when I click on oxygen therapy and the common learner events, no matter where we are in the scenario, it will have the same effect. It doesn't matter if the scenario is in the first frame or the last, 15 minutes in or 30 seconds. When the learner applies O2, I can click Oxygen Therapy. I'm going to choose what type of oxygen they added. In this case, we are looking for nasal. And you can even adjust what flow they've chosen. And I'll click OK. Notice we get a green check mark next to Oxygen Therapy, indicating that it has been turned on. Here on our little visual, we get the nasal cannula has been added. Over here on the patient monitor, we see that the SpO2 is up to 97, and the respirations are down to 14, just as we had programmed it. And down here in the log, we see that at 219 there was a correct step, and that correct step was oxygen being added. This information will be good to reference during debriefing. In the Advanced Handlers video, I will show you how to program a handler into a scenario, how to add a trend as an action, making the patient response more gradual, and a few other tricks. I hope this gets you started programming your own handlers so you can spend more time paying attention to the learner in simulation and less time looking at the computer.